Aloha and welcome to Connection to the Cosmos with your host, Dr. Lisa Thompson, where I have extraordinary conversations with people. And today I am so excited to have Dr. Isla Fishburn on, and you'll understand why in a moment, why I'm really excited about this conversation. But first, just a couple of announcements. If you have not had the opportunity to grab my free 20-minute meditative journey to meet your galactic family and guides, make sure you do that. That's on my website, drlisajthompson.com or mysticmanta.com. Also, I am going to be leading my Galactic Ascension Channel certification program February 22nd and 23rd online. So if you are in the healing field or want to do any kind of healing and add on to your modalities, then please join me for that. That's also on my website. I am also leading my galactic retreat here on the Big Island of Hawaii from April 30th to May 4th of next year, and limited spots for that, but incredible connection to the cosmos. And if you are coming to Hawaii, specifically to the Big Island, then come on one of my Big Island UFO tours, where you will get to use my Generation 3 military night vision goggles and see the night sky in a whole new way. Okay, and so BigIslandUFOtours.com, mysticmanta.com, drlisajthompson.com. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Isla, Dr. Isla.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, so lovely to be with you.
So, okay, let me read the bio, because my people who have been with me for a long time, as soon as I read the bio, they're going to understand, oh yeah, this is why I'm so excited for this. Dr. Isla Fishburn is an intuitive interspecies communicator where she channels and communes with soul, spirit, consciousness of individuals, collectives, nature, elements, beings from higher realms, and pets, as well as channeling light language. She is a canine wellness intuitive, zoologist, and has a PhD in conservation biology. She's a shamanic practitioner and space holder of sacred ceremonies, where she invites people to blend the seen with the unseen and enter this space of soul spirit communion with all of life. She has recently published her first book. Actually, I didn't ask you how to say this name. How do you Tunkasila's?
Tunkasila or Tunkasila?
Okay, Tunkasila's teachings, wisdom from the Canine Soul, medicine for the human heart. Her second book is called How the Canine People Helped the Humans Return to Ceremony. In her channeled communion, she regularly receives the message of return to ceremony, which is what we are being asked to do and what Isla offers through her various teachings. Her business is called Kachina Canine, where she explores soul consciousness, healing, ceremonies, channeling, and communion between canine guardians and their canine friends to live in ceremony together. Okay, well, so you and I also have a PhD basically in zoology. Yours is conservation biology, mine's evolutionary biology, but I focused in zoology and marine biology. So I'm curious, super curious about how you grew up, what's your background, like spiritual, religious, something else, to know how you got on this path of, number one, the animals, but then also this spiritual journey and doing what you do now, because you've had quite a transition like I have.
Yeah. I love that you shared that, because I'm like, oh my goodness, you get it. You totally get it as well, which, yeah, excites me. Thank you for bringing that question forward. So, yeah, as a child, and they're still with me now, but as far as I can remember, when I was a kid, I always had a wolf and bear with me. And this wolf and bear to me were real. So I kind of, as a kid growing up, I was like, well, everyone can see this wolf and bear. And then I guess unconsciously got to a place where I realized this wolf and bear I could see, but nobody else could. But they were always around, always with me. And I remember, like, every birthday and every Christmas. I mean, not every birthday and Christmas when I was like 1, 2, or 3 years old, because I'm probably too young to remember that. But I remember certain Christmases, certain birthdays, you know, parents, grandparents, relatives would say to me, you know, what would you like for your birthday? What would you like for Christmas? If you're really respectful to your parents, or do as you're told, or whatever it may be, and that labeling of like, you're a good girl, you're a good kid, you kind of get the gifts that you would like. So I was like, well, I'd really like my wolf and my bear to be small so that they can fit inside my pocket, so that they can come with me wherever I go. And of course, like, I mean, my parents really kind of entertained me with this concept of my wolf and bear, but it never materialized because, of course, it couldn't materialize in that way. But through my wolf and bear, I've always had this love of nature, love of animals. Like, I always felt a connection to, like, animals are really cool. Like, animals have got it. They just know.
Yeah.
And so I've always had that as a kid. And again, as a child, I assumed everyone had this luxury. And for me, it now looking back is a luxury. But at the bottom of my street, we had this beautiful landscape that we nicknamed the Sandhills. And it was just this beautiful area of countryside where there was ponds, there was woodland, there was like, well, sand hills. And that's where I spent my childhood, whether I was going down there on my own, whether I was going down there with my dad, like playing games, I'd go down there with my friends. And there was a concept as a child growing up that everything is alive, that everything is speaking to me and I'm speaking to it. But again, really early on in my life, I kind of had this belief system of, yes, but I'm a white woman in England, or I'm a white girl in England. I can't connect anymore. But maybe in a time before I could, or maybe in my future I can. But right now it's existing, but I can't hear anything. So I remember as a child, I would always kind of welcome the stones, welcome the trees, welcome the plants, just like other animals would say, hi, how are you guys doing? Oh, you're so pretty, but never kind of really hear anything back. So really fortunate that I had this connection to animals, this connection to nature, and also a real deep fascination since a child. I mean, I remember when I was 14 years old reading Bury My Heart, a Wounded Knee, and crying, but not really understanding it. It was a real big book for a 13, 14-year-old to read. But also having this beautiful curiosity and kind of connection of like, yeah, that makes sense to me around tribal communities, indigenous cultures, and their connection to nature, their connection to life, the connection of like everything is alive, and that our respect for it. So I kind of, from that, kind of built my own ceremonies is too strong a word, but kind of built my own connections of like a morning salutation, almost a morning call, an evening one. So kind of have always lived with this spiritual knowing without, I mean, I had my wolf and my bear, but without kind of fully understanding it until later on in I guess my early adulthood, I suppose. But also this thirst of the natural world and how it works, which kind of took me down my route of ecology, zoology, conservation biology, of from that place of I want us all to be our own budding conservation biologists and kind of like conserve the land, conserve the animals, conserve the plants, conserve the waters, conserve the stars, conserve the wind, just everything from that place of almost like being in right relationship and being in connection with all of life, just like all of our cosmic family as I see it.
Beautiful. Well, so I resonate with everything that you just said. And so, okay, so because like me, I mean, in my childhood, obsessed with animals. I just wanted to know everything about them, and I felt like animals were a safer place than people were too. And so that's why I chose to go into that field. And so you did the same kind of path as me, PhD, zoology. And so tell me what being an academic was like for you, being this more spiritual being, because mainstream academia, scientists are not necessarily like that. And so then we'll do that, and then we'll transition to.
Yeah. And it's kind of like there's parts of being in academia that are like the best times of my life, and there's parts that were the worst times of my life. I really questioned like my own sanity, or like even my own ability of like, am I really sick here? Am I seeing something that other people aren't seeing? It just wasn't the right environment for me, because was in this space of wanting to know, yes, how the natural world works, or how we can support animals, how we can support the earth, how we can conserve, but really still from this place of like, earth is alive, and why we're not talking about this, why we're not addressing it. It was still the, what statistical test you're going to do, and how do we frame this question so that we can do a nice statistical study. And I was just like, whoa, it was almost like I could feel like I'm a zoologist and I'm doing conservation biology and I'm exploring the natural world in this amazing way. and yet we're trying to fit it into a system that kind of has to have a mathematical model or some sort of model or framework around it that I kind of understand. I do kind of understand, but in order to get it published or in order to get it into an academic paper, an academic journal, and so in some ways it felt suffocating that we were like, I'm suffocating or strangling the very thing that I want to achieve. Yes. And I really got stuck on my own ego of, but how else can I do this if people are only going to take me seriously if I'm like, oh well, I'm the academic, so I'm right. And I was like, it's not even about being right. And so it was this peculiar time where, towards the end of my PhD, I wanted to be a wolf conservation biologist. So I was really in this space of just learning, because I was at uni, I had access to so many papers and so many different journals that I was reading absolutely everything I could around wolf behavior, ecology, communication, symbolism, spirituality, connection, just everything that I possibly could about like how can we bridge the gap between ourselves and conservation, even through like wild animals, particularly like the big wild animals like wolves and bears that are like, let's just eradicate them all, and that's also not helpful. Right. But yeah, this kind of like transition was naturally starting to happen where I was just questioning myself and questioning people around me that were like, yeah, you've got a PhD, you can be taking, you're so important because you're a doctor. And I'm like, actually, I just worked really hard at something that I'm really passionate about. Like, that's really what it is. Don't like, I would say like, I laugh at myself a lot because I have a doctorate, and I'm honestly, some of the stuff that I come out with, I laugh at myself so everyone can laugh with me. So it's absolutely fine. But I also really struggled, I think, being kind of stuck in this rigid path of what academia, and it could be different now, I don't know if it is, but just this rigid path of this is how you do the studies, this is how you write it, this is the journal it needs to go to. And then it just kind of not making sense to me, because then I was sending papers off to be published or to be reviewed. And then they were coming back, criticized, could be published here, could be published there. But then what I started to realize is like the scientists that are reviewing your papers are scientists that are in the same field as you. So then all of a sudden I'm sucked into this whole thing of competition. So a lot of the time it's like your paper's not getting rejected because the science is bad. It's getting rejected because in the back they're like, hang on, we're writing a really similar paper and 2 months down the line it's going to come out. So I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me, where we're all supposed to do the same thing of doing our very best to conserve nature, the earth, to bring it out there for everyone to learn and improve and to know. Yet we are then through ego, like prohibiting everybody. I mean, there was a place that I was an ego, but not at that level, where then these great studies are being done, but then they're not getting out there because they're being rejected from the place of not that the science is bad, but, oh, well, you're doing something similar, so we're going to close the doors on you. Yeah. And it just, it was a really big one for me, because I really, as I say, I questioned my own sanity and I questioned myself, because I'm like, just something's not working for me. Something's not right for me. But I got so kind of conditioned into, but you are an academic and stay in the science because science is what you're supposed to be doing. And this is like the best thing, like science is the best thing ever. And now I kind of laugh, even in the sector that I'm in now, and you hear it so much of like, where's the science? Where's the science? And it's kind of just become almost as like someone got like that cookie cutter tool, and it's just become almost like a mantra, where's the science, rather than kind of contemplating like, what do you mean by that? What do you actually, there's loads of evidence that's anecdotal, or there's evidence informed or evidence based, and that's also really important. If I witness something and observe something, you can't tell me it hasn't happened if I've witnessed it and observed it. I don't need a statistical study or a scientific paper to tell me it happened if it did happen. And so there was a time, so I finished my PhD. This is hilarity. I finished my PhD and I applied for 15 postdocs. 15 postdocs. I got interviews for 10 of them. And at every interview, I was told, look, we can't criticize your interview. Everything that you delivered in your answers were really, really good. We've given the position to someone that had more experience. And after 10 interviews of being told that, I'm like, I'm still not good enough. I've got a PhD and I'm still not good enough. And that really affected me because I already kind of had that belief system of like, I'm really thick, I'm really stupid. Like, how the heck am I even getting through doing a PhD? Like, almost like that imposter syndrome of like, I'm going to get found out here and I'm going to be found out that I'm a fraud. But then I'm like, I'm clearly not good enough. And then, yeah, I ended up working with captive wolves, which was a really beautiful experience to be in the space with wolves. And it was during that time that before I worked with the captive wolves, I had my wolf dog Tunkasila. So she transitioned in 2022. And I really hit a point in my life when like that was it. I'm just like, I don't know what the answer is. I was in a really difficult place personally, really difficult place professionally. And I was like, I'm just going to end my life. Like I don't know what the answer is, but I'm done. I'm just so done at trying to work out an answer. And at the time, there was a beautiful woodland where I lived, and every day I'd go and visit the woodland, and there was this beautiful tree that I would sit on, and it would, when I sat on it, it would bounce. It would almost like it'd be being cradled because I'd just bounce up and down on this tree. And so this one day I'm like bouncing up and down this tree, crying my eyes out, like snot, tears, like the whole works. And then from behind me, I hear someone say, "You are enough." So I instantly stop because behind there's a farmer's field. And I'm like, oh God, like it's the farmer. Like, I'm so embarrassed. He's like, poor little woman. What can I say that's nice? Just, to give us sympathy. And so I stopped crying and looked behind me and there was nobody there. And I was like, I definitely heard someone say you are enough, but I can't see anybody. Went back to crying and heard it again. You are enough. And then I was like, it's the tree. It's the tree that's saying those words. And in that moment, there was just something massively just activated within me to go, okay, there is something else that I've always known, but being too afraid, too shy, to whatever, to not even talk about, except in my own private room where I kept everything hidden in secret. And that kind of, spiraled into where I'm at now to talk about like, guys, everything is spirit, everything's expression of spirit. We are soul, we are connected to the cosmos, all these amazing things that I can't not talk about because I see it and I hear it and I feel it. And I love taking people to those spaces. So I'm like, yeah, science is really important. It's like bringing the seen with the unseen. It's bringing the invisible with the visible. It's bringing the science to the metaphysical, to spirit. And that brings me back to science because science was founded on spirituality. And that's kind of where I want to get back to as a scientist. That's where I was curious of the old scientists who are all about curiosity. I'm observing this. I'm really curious about it. I mean, now it's become ego, superiority. I'm better than you. I want the money. I want the funding. So it's like most sectors, unfortunately, it's been this distortion. But I'm actually fundamentally, science was based on spirituality. So we need both in order to create the wholeness. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Okay, so many things here.
I know.
I know. I love it because, I fully got into the science out of the curiosity, right? I never wanted to be like, oh, I need to write grants and publish papers and teach and any of that. I just wanted to know. I was curious. And so what's interesting, just as a little aside, is when I was in academics, I had this knowing fully that I had been with extraterrestrials. I believed in Sasquatch, mermaids, dragons, all the fairies, right? I knew that they were real. And I would share that with my friends and they would think I was absolutely crazy because they're like, well, where's the proof? There's no proof. And I'm like, we are scientists. We're supposed to be open-minded, curious. We don't have all the tools. There's more than just this physical reality. And so I love everything that you shared. And completely resonate with it. And I also love sometimes how the universe, we think we want something, we want it to go a certain way, like you trying to get these postdocs. And it's like, no, you need to be on a different path.
Yes.
And so sometimes those closed doors get us onto the right path.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally. I mean, I always like, we have a plan. I always say it's like, we have a plan and spirit's like, I laugh at your plan because this is the plan. And I'm always like, oh man, like we're always like 3 steps behind, 10 steps behind, or so I just laugh now to go, oh, I thought we were going this way, but okay, we're going this way. Cool. Let's see. Let's bring it on. Yeah.
So then the tree's talking to you. You are enough. So then what was the next kind of process of like really owning that, of that you're talking with these different things. I mean, because like you said, as a kid, you were doing that already. And so
yes.
like,
And
how did you finally like, yes, I fully embrace this, I'm stepping into this?
Yeah, kind of was, because a little bit like you shared, and like I would say to my friends when I was a kid, like, guys, should we go to the sandhills and like speak to the rocks, speak to the stones, speak to the trees? And they'd be like that. No, Isla, because that's weird. You're just being weird. And you hear it enough, like, you're just being weird to learn, like, I'll just shut up. Like, I'll just do it quietly. So yeah, I kind of, started to hear you are enough. And I'm like, oh, it's the tree. Like, it's the tree. Because that was kind of like, again, as I know, there was like a knowing of like, okay, I know everything's speaking to me. I just can't hear it. And what then started happening? So me and my wolf dog Tunkasila, our connection, the biggest thing that happened then almost overnight was my connection with Tunkasila got even deeper because we had a really strong connection. She got me out of an abusive relationship, got me out of an abusive marriage. And then she actually saved my life, because whilst I heard the tree say you are enough, there was also contemplation of if I take my own life, what's going to happen to her? Because through trauma that she'd experienced, she was a dog that liked about 5 other people and about 3 of the dogs, and that was it. And so I was just like, chances are she's also going to be destroyed. And I that's not fair. So then my dream time started to get a little bit more experiential, for want of a better word, where she would start to speak to me in my dream time. And then it kind of, I probably suppose the best word for it is trust. I just started to go, do you know what? Like, I don't care. Yeah, trust. And sorry, I paused there because it was also just, and also not caring. I got to the point of like, this is real for me. I've spent my entire life doing what I think other people want me to do, or giving too much of a shit about what other people think.
Yes.
And so so really restricting my life. And I kind of got this point of like, Isla, you've kind of been doing that for 32 years. It's not really working, is it? So let's just try this one. Let's just see. Let's just be scientists and be curious. Let's be our own research experiment, and let's see. And as I kind of opened it, it was like my heart opening, really. It's just like, I just trust. I don't know. I just trust. I don't know. I just trust. And I'm kind of in that space now of that when I'm receiving or I'm doing something that we're not supposed to know until we're in it. And then when we're in it, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I'm starting to receive. I'm getting this really weird thing that I don't even know what it is. I'm being handed this thing to work with and I don't know what it is. And so I kind of don't question. I just trust and move with it. And that kind of then opened me up into then being able to channel. So it's always a bit of a strange one of like, what do I call myself? And I'm like, is there even a word for it? Because people have said like, oh, so you're an animal communicator. I'm like, well, no, not really, because there's certain, when I'm with an animal, there's certain things that how I'm with them, I'm at like a really high level of their soul consciousness. And so they're kind of, I'm really paraphrasing if it helps at all, but they're kind of like, look, even though time doesn't exist, we're in this crazy human construction of time. So let's get the nitty gritty. Let's get to the really crazy things that we want to talk about. We don't want to talk about like what my favorite toy is or what my favorite color is, or like, you know, like that's important for the human, but come on, like we really want to take you to these other places. And then that kind of started to happen verbally. So I was hearing them where I'd write it down.
Okay.
Like I'd channel do automatic writing. And then when Tunkasila transitioned in 2022, that's when it just started to come verbally. But it's also then like, because I don't even think I'm a psychic or a medium. For me, it feels like channeling or just having a communication with their soul consciousness. It's the only way I can describe it. Because when I'm channeling, they're not becoming me. It's just like I'm channeling an animal or a stone or a plant or a tree or earth or wind or water. I'm like, okay, they're here. So they're really close, but they're not kind of taking over. And so, it was really my dream time. Tunkasila talking to me, my dream time, me then being able to like hear her more. And then I was starting to then channel from Tunkasila. I'm just like, hey guys, like Tunkasila wants to share this to the world, to whoever wants to receive it. And she shared so much, but one of the things that always anchors in me is what she shared is that animals are in our life to be the elixir of our spiritual amnesia. And I just love that so much, that animals are in our life to be the elixir of our spiritual amnesia, to wake us up and to be back into this conscious being that we are, and connected to the consciousness of all of life on this earth and obviously above.
Yeah.
And so then kind of from that, I was a bit like, okay, well, who else wants to channel with me, and what else can I channel? And so it's kind of become this remembering my family, for want of a better word, and who wants to channel with me. So now, I mean, again, the ego, when I started to kind of channel more, I was like, I know so many people kind of channel the Lyrans or Arcturians or the Pleiadians. I'm like, oh, I don't channel, like, oh, I'd love to channel those. Maybe that's as a channel, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I've actually realized that's not what I'm supposed to do. But I have, I guess, my channeling guides that are kind of like the high intergalactic beings are my soul family, but they refer themselves as the canine people. And so the canine people are like, they didn't give me a bollocking as such, that's me paraphrasing, but they kind of said, look, like, don't dismiss us. We're no different to the Lyrans, to the Arcturians. We're no different to anything that's like high vibration.
Yeah.
You're our family and we're your family. But it's really like, the canine people, some star systems, but down into nature just has, nature speaks. And that's what really excites me, just bringing that to people to go, we can all do it. And it's so exciting. Like, they in their wholeness, we're the only life form that's been taken out of our wholeness. And so because they're in their wholeness, they speak with such wisdom, because they're already there, and they're just like, hey, we want you to come back and join us, which then goes on to that theme that I hear, return to ceremony. That's what everything's inviting us to do. Like, just come back to us. You're almost there. You're so close. Just come back.
I love that so much. So, okay, a couple things, because as mainstream academic scientists, people don't. I think I saw a paper recently or heard about something. I don't follow it anymore because I've been out for 22 years, but that they're like, oh, animals do have consciousness. And it's like, well, yeah, of course they do. Because just that whole thought of all the different groups. And I worked with fish, so all the different fishes and the sharks and the rays. And I'm like, every one of the fish that I had in the lab that I'm studying had different personalities. They had different consciousness. And I fully could see that. I knew it. I would talk to them as well. And then I just recently was leading one of my galactic retreats. And one of the things that I had my people do was hold different crystals in their hands and let the crystals speak to them, to communicate with them. Because even though, people think that these inanimate kind of objects or whatever, everything has consciousness.
Yeah.
And yes, the plants, the trees, all the animals. So everything that you're saying, I just absolutely love, because so I do channel ETs, but I also am able, like you, to really commune with nature and just be one with it. So thank you for the work that you're doing now.
Oh, likewise, absolutely likewise. Yeah, because you're right. It's like, do we need, like, now that science says, oh, animals are sentient beings, they have consciousness. Oh, it's okay, we can talk about it now. I'm like, I don't need science to tell me that everything holds consciousness. And that's what I love of, like, taking people's spaces of, like, for example, with the fish, of every individual fish has consciousness, but then you can connect to the consciousness of, like, all fish. And it's just so amazing of just going into that other space of, yes, there is that space that's needed, of course, for science to, through curiosity, teach us and tell us so that we can learn and grow and evolve. But we can't kind of, for me, it's like we can't have the seen without the unseen. We kind of, we need both.
Yeah.
But certainly, with the consciousness and being in the consciousness, that's something that it has to be anecdotal evidence, because what you were to receive from the conscious of fish is going to be different to what I receive from the conscious of fish, because of who we are, where we are, what we need on our soul journey, and what we're here to do anyway. And so it's very individual, because it's also based on feeling as well. But that's why I love taking people to those spaces, because it really pulls them into that space of trust. And I'm like, if it's right for you, then it's right. Don't be guided by, I need to go and ask this person. I need to hear, like, oh, well done, like 10 out of 10 because you did really good and you connected. I'm like, you connected, and how the stone wants to speak to you is how the stone wants to speak to you based on what it is you need. And that's what I love so much, when we are in that space of everything has consciousness, has its own wisdom, and it knows what it needs to speak to you, what it needs to speak to me, what it needs to speak to every individual that connects in that way. And they're so patient. This consciousness is so patient of us kind of just like catching up and just remembering. People will say to me, and I used to say as well, oh, I need to learn it, but it's not a learning, it's absolutely a remembering. Then also not comparing or even judging how we communicate or how we receive, because I did that around the whole in the community, like, oh my goodness, so many people communicate, like I've shared to the Palladians, the Lyrans, and I was like, oh, but I don't. Oh, there must be something wrong with me. And I'm like, no, I'm just not supposed to. Like, that's fine. Oh, I'm not supposed to yet anyway. Maybe I will. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think we, in growing up in academia and in that competition kind of world, that is just naturally kind of bred into us. And it's more of a deconditioning of we're doing what we're meant to be doing. And
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, like, because I remember even in some of my lectures when we were learning about, I don't know, different things about animals, biology, zoology, but and there was all it was curiosity. It wasn't like questioning someone in that way, but I was like, how do we know? Like, I always had this curiosity of like, the only individual that truly knows is the individual itself. So wouldn't it be really cool to just ask the individual? But it was just so, they're like, Ali, you're just so crazy. Like, just what the hell are you talking about? Like, this is what we know because we've studied it for X number of years. And I'm like, that's great. And also that's useful, but we're still kind of making a very good, well-educated guess. But it's still a very good, well-educated guess. Like, if we go to the individual, then we'll know, because the individual will share how it is for it as an individual. I liken it to the dogs that I work with, and the dog's barking because I'm like, well, that's a reason why dogs can bark. But if we go to that dog as an individual that is doing the barking, then it will know for itself and its consciousness, and then it can share, and then we can have more of an understanding of like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I think for me, that's what I love, because it's almost like being connected to the consciousness allows us to be this scientist permanently, but it's just never ending. Every time I'm connected to the conscious of what I'm connecting to, there's just I have a great imagination, but I can't imagine it. It's just so amazing, and it always teaches me something. It always instills me with more knowledge of like, oh, so that's how it is for that animal. Oh, that's how it is for that stone. Oh, that's how it is for that tree. And then I'm like, wow, every individual leaf on a sycamore also has consciousness. Every particle of soil, we can connect to the soil, but then every individual particle also has consciousness. And I just love it. That's what really excites me.
Yes, absolutely. So now I'm curious how this has been for you, of like this transition out of academia and into this spiritual realm and talking to, communicating with all the things. How has it been with your friends and your family?
That's such a good question. So, do you know, my family are so supportive. Even to which I'm so grateful for, and so blessed. And even friends have said to me, like, Isla, how amazing is this that you've actually been able to like heal your mum by you being able to do this, and you're just sharing to your mum, and I have, which is so beautiful. So my mum's really on board. Like, she's really, yes. My dad is a very good daughter. I'm very proud of you. Don't quite know what it is that you do, but well done. But at least he's supportive. And my husband is so supportive. He loves it. Like some things I'm like, this is to be kept secret and sacred, and some things I'll share. Like, oh my goodness, like this happened, or I did this, or I saw this, or I channeled this. So like he loves it. So family in that sense are really supportive, and friends are as well. I think because I'm just not afraid to talk about it. I know some people that I would say more people that would follow me, because I went kind of like from academia, behavior, canine wellness, still from that place of your dog's an individual. Like I get people to understand your dog as an ecosystem. So I don't care that your dog is a dog. I care that your dog's an ecosystem. And so it's an individual. So I care about it as an individual rather than what it should be as a dog. So that's kind of what I was really known for. And then since kind of like the more opening into like, I was always like, there's something else, there's something else, there's something else, there's something else. And I'm like, but what is it? I can't quite find it. And then it was like, oh, it's the unseen aspect of life. It's the invisible aspect of life. That's what it is. But it completes the circle. Like there is so much talk around mental, physical, emotional wellness, which is so important. But then there's still like, oh, there's the spiritual stuff. And like we don't know what it is, or we're gonna think people are gonna think we're crazy, or we don't know how to even talk about it. Whereas I'm like, yeah, there's the spiritual side of life, guys. Let's get on board. Let's talk about it, like, because spiritual nourishment affects the rest of the cycle, the circle. It affects us mentally, emotionally, physically, anyway. And we are soul. We are an expression of spirit in this human vessel. So no wonder we feel depleted and disconnected and homesick when we're not connecting to our families in the unseen. And we can go into alt state of consciousness and we can connect. We can drop into those spaces and we can receive. We can open our heart and be guided by our intuition. So this is also who we are. It's like it's not. I mean, it's special because it's incredible, but it's not special because we can all do it. I want people to understand. So I know that, and again, I'm in a space now where like I don't care. Like to begin with, some people distant themselves or like, oh my god, Anna's a complete quack, like she's lost it. And I'm like, I don't care, like believe what you believe. Like it's not my job to convince yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm just in this space now where like I think because I am a scientist and I can't unsee what I've seen and I can't unhear what I've heard and I can't undo what I've been doing, and going into these spaces of the invisible and what you hear, what you see, like even when you symbols, like I'm just like, I can't make this up. Like my eyes are closed and I'm seeing things, or I'm channeling something. I don't know what I'm channeling, or it's not the way that I would speak. Because even sometimes if, you know, as I'm speaking to you, I'd be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that because it might offend somebody. I'm like, everything has consciousness, but we're the only life form that is self-conscious. So when I'm channeling, I'm like, I definitely know I'm channeling, because if I was to say that, I'd be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that because someone might get offended. Where, you know, they're not being nasty, but they have no self-conscious. They're just, this is what it is, and we're sharing. And so I can't, for me now, I think it's so real. And because it has affected my life so much, like I was at the point where like, I'm going to take my life. I don't want anybody else to be there. I know what it feels like. I don't want anybody else to be there. But now that I'm here and I'm like so supported, feel my family, feel that connection, know that, okay, I'm hurting physically right now, or I'm going through some pain, or I'm just ready to channel with whoever wants to come through for a share, for a message for people that are ready to listen. Like, why would I deny them? And why would I deny myself? So, yeah, I think I'm at a point now, like, I actually don't care what anybody else thinks of me. What I care is about my integrity and my connection and my relationship, my coexistence and communion with all of life. Like, all of life that I've had that connection to, but have forgotten and not been listening to. It's almost like, in that sense, not speaking to my family. They are my family. And it's a hoot. Yeah, it's a hoot. That like, I don't know, like, what's going to happen next? What's going to be done next? What's going to be shared next? Where's it going to lead me to? Where's it going to take me to? But yeah, it's a really good question. Because I guess I was in that place where I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like, this is what matters to me, is sharing this information, regardless of if I lose friends or lose family, or people think that I'm crazy or kind of need to be sectioned, or it's funny because you can't, as you say, is like when I'm in this room and I'm channeling, or like yesterday I did a sacred soul ceremony for a dog, so I'm working on the dog's soul. But if it's recorded, you don't see anything, but I'm seeing the soul. And also what's amazing for me is even more so, like normally I'm seeing or receiving, channeling like with my eyes closed, but certain times when I'm like in these deep spaces of ceremony, I'm also seeing consciousness, I'm seeing spirit with my eyes open. And you just can't, even if you just experienced it once, when you've seen it, you can't unsee it. When you've heard it, you can't unhear it. And that's what kind of gets infectious, not from a place of obsession, but knowing like, there's something else to life that doesn't judge me, that doesn't care whether I'm tall or short or fat or thin or what my nationality is or what my culture is or what I believe. They love me and they want me to hear, and they're here for me. I'm just like, why would I dismiss that over like, oh, having 10 friends or having all my family speak to me or
Yeah, beautiful. Like just I absolutely love this. So how do you actually work with clients? Like if someone is like, because I mean, I feel such like a connection with everything that you are saying myself, and I'm sure the audience is feeling that. And so I'm sure some people are like, okay, well, what do you do with clients? How do we work together?
Yeah. And you know, in the it's not quite infinite in that way, and it's still evolving. It's always evolving because I feel I'm just in this space now of like, well, I'm a part of creativity. So what is it that I want to create? Because I want to live from that place of what does it excite me, then I'm going to do it. Does it bring me joy, then I'm going to do it. And if it doesn't, then I'm not going to do it. Or it might be that I've created something, go, oh, I love it. And then I get to a point like that. Oh, do you know what? I did love it, but I'm going to put it back into, we call it the sacred dream. I'm just going to put it back because it doesn't bring me joy anymore. So one of the ways that I do work is I kind of feel into what the client may need. So sometimes I'll just jump on a call because I'm like, I'm not even quite sure what it is that we need. Like you might think that you need this, but actually what you need is this. Often because someone's coming to me because their dog is presenting something. So it can still often be, you know, my dog is angry, like my dog is aggressive, or my dog is nervous, or my dog doesn't do this, or whatever it may be. And so I don't even use the words now of like, what is the problem? What is the issue? What is the challenge? I'm like, I'm curious, like, what is your dog presenting to you? And they'll say whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, how does that make you feel? And then we kind of go on a narrative around, oh, well, actually, it makes me feel embarrassed, or I expect perfection, or it makes me feel guilty. And I'm like, aha, okay, so that's the charge, right? That is the charge that has not been integrated yet. So regardless of whether your dog was presenting this or not, that charge has always been within you. So it's like looking at how the animal in that person's life has come to them to activate their own healing. So then we can maybe then look at like, what does your animal also need? Because it's not about, oh, it's nothing to do with the animal. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, this is just what the animal is, a vibration. The animal is an expression of spirit. And it's not a way that spirit isn't manipulating the animal, but spirit is able to work through the animal to basically come to the human to go, hey, look at this, what I'm presenting to you. And for me, that's kind of how I see nature anyway, of everything that's showing up in our life, everything around us is an expression of spirit. So when we start to pay attention to that, whether it makes us feel good and great or whether we're like triggered by it, then go to the trigger, go to the feeling and catch it and go, okay, this trigger was always around before this animal or this plant or this tree or this wind or whatever. It's just in this moment, it has brought it to my attention. So hopefully my consciousness can now look at it and do something about it. So it kind of looks at what does the human need? And then there's also the animal section. So with animals, I'll do sacred soul ceremonies, sacred transition ceremonies, and sacred spirit ceremonies. So sacred transition ceremonies is when an animal is soon to transition. Sacred spirit ceremony is when an animal is already transitioned as in spirit. Sacred soul ceremony is when an animal's alive and well, and whether the guardian just maybe wants to hear from them, from their soul consciousness, or whether there is some other things going on that we can explore. And that's kind of where I go into an altered state of consciousness with the soul of the animal. And I can be doing anything from soul retrieval, energy extraction, healing, advice to the guardian. And that's where I will channel. So I'll channel directly from the soul consciousness of the animal. And it's really common for me to receive the animal's sacred symbol. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like almost like Prince, he has his little symbol. It's almost like, well, it's their sacred geometry, so it's the language of their soul represented as a symbol. So I'll get that as well. I will also do just channeling. So if somebody's just like, I want to hear from the soul conscious of my animal, then I'll channel with the animal. The guardian may have a particular question, or I'm just like, hey, do you just want to go into what the animal wants to bring forward? So I do that. I also do light language bathing for a guardian and a dog, where it just is a part of healing, a way where they can be together, but now we're not going to give words. We're not going to like dog's doing this, the dog's doing like no words, because actually our animals love it when we just shut up, including our thoughts. And light language is such a beautiful space to put guardian and animal in. Animals really love light language, and so do the humans. So I do light language bathing, and then plant spirit immersions. So a little bit like choosing plant spirit that wants to work with the human, a plant spirit that wants to work with the animal, and then with that taking them on an experiential journey, again going into the feeling, and a channeling might come up through that as well. And then I do I offer various kind of short workshops online and in person. And then a big course that I do is called Sacred Creator. And Sacred Creator is kind of taking a human through all of what I've talked about, really, but building their sacred circle and living from their sacred circle to trust their own intuition and to go into experiential journeys so they can heal, they can know if they're allies around that sacred circle and live from that place and start to be pulled into the consciousness of life and connect to the consciousness of life. And then I kind of just on my YouTube channel just do channelings. I try and do them weekly, although with it being the summertime, I've been here, there and everywhere, so I've not done any a couple of months, but I just sit in this space and go, okay, who wants to channel? It's normally from the canine people or one of my own dogs. Sometimes it can be a plant, sometimes it might be a stone. So I kind of do like these live channelings as well, just to get people into the concept of we're all channelers, we can channel from everything, and go and explore it yourself. Like, as I say, it's special because it's amazing, but it's not special because we can all do it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Everything. I love it. So what has been your greatest, I guess, learning from all of this?
Oh, my greatest learning. Oh, such a good question. So for me, and I know I've already shared it, it's got to be trust, because you don't know. You absolutely, as soon as you're in that place of like, oh, I'm going to channel with the stones and maybe they'll speak this, maybe we're already kind of guessing that, because, I can only speak from my experience. When I'm in that space, that's when it's really coming through. So I don't know what's going to be said. I don't know what's going to be shared. And there is still moments to this day, and maybe I'll always be there, but there are still moments when I'm like, I'm going to do this channeling. What if I don't get anything? What if I get it wrong? What if someone like hates on me? And I'm like, and even so, I just trust. Like, if something's coming, I trust. And so, yeah, it's such a good question, but I feel for me, because I really was in that place of doubt, like my entire life, I doubt myself. I'm so stupid. I'm not very clever. Everyone's better than me. All that noise and nonsense. So I'm still open. My heart is so open, but I'm still open in that space of trust. And that's why I love channeling. Because for me, I did it. I trust. I did it. I trust. I don't question it, because as soon as we question it, it's when we're in that space of consciousness, it goes beyond what the mind can comprehend anyway. That's kind of what I love getting people to understand, is like, sometimes people say to me, if I'm speaking light language, well, what does it mean? How do we interpret it? And I know sometimes you can, like, sometimes I'll speak light language and there'll be a bit of English, light language, bit of English. But I'm like, as soon as we interpret it, that's it. The magic's gone. The mystery's gone. The whole power of it's gone, because we're in the mind, and the mind's going to try and analyze something, but it takes us back to the science. It'll analyze something based on what makes sense to us and what we believe, regardless of whether we are conscious of that belief system or unconscious of it. Whereas when we get put into that space of channeling and connecting in that way, you've got to trust, because it's coming from the unknown. It's working through us, but it's not us.
Yeah. When I started channeling, I was like, okay, number one, I got to get over what people are going to think of me. And then I also had to trust that I could step aside. I didn't have to control, and it was just going to flow. And and everyone can do it. So
everyone can do it. And I think what's the hardest one for me is if I'm channeling from someone else's dog, because even though I'll explain through a phone call or an email or a message, like, step out of any expectation. Step out of any expectation. Because often it makes sense, like, they can't help it. Often animal guardians will come with a preconceived expectation or idea of what their dog is going to say. And it's really funny because sometimes people say to me like, oh, so does my dog not love me? And I'm like, what makes you say that? Oh, because they didn't say it when you channel them. I'm like, because it's obvious. Like, they're not gonna, like, to them it's obvious. They're like again, we've got, come on, TikTok, like, let's just get the nitty gritty. This is what I need to share. Like, they're like, duh, of course I love you. I'm like, I'm an expression of love. Of course I love you. So for me, when I'm like, I feel more at ease when I'm channeling nature. But when I'm channeling someone else's animal, I'm like, okay, like, I really have to go just out completely into my heart and completely trust. I trust this. These are the words shared, whether the guardian understands them or doesn't, because on some level we're not supposed to. It's been shared, it's been received at the level of their soul. So what was needed has been shared and needed. And for me, there still is a I have to trust without knowing, because I'm like, even that doesn't make sense to me, or but I'm like, I'm just a representative. I do love it though.
Beautiful. So in our just last bit of time here, share how people can find you, what's your website, what socials are you on?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. Yeah, so my website is kachinacanine.com. That's Kachina, Kachina, Canine, Canine. So kachinacanine.com. Instagram is Kachina _canine_wellness. Facebook is Kachina Canine Wellness, or Isla Fishburn. Both are on there. And email is islafishburn@kachinacanine.com. I have my YouTube channel as well, where there's like largely channelings, but there's some canine wellness stuff on there, or some free videos. Like one's called Return to Ceremony, and so various different things on there. But I'm quite new to YouTube and doing these things, so hopefully more and more will be coming out soon.
Beautiful. Well, it has truly been a pleasure. I've absolutely loved everything that you've shared. I resonate with everything fully. And so thank you. And I'm sure the audience has enjoyed this as well.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to speak to you and your audience. And I really love speaking. It was a great pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, and for everyone that's here listening or watching, thank you as always. And I'll see you next time on Connection to the Cosmos. Aloha.
Many blessings.